Thank you for joining me on the show today. This is the Now Talks, a collection of inspiring personal stories and leadership lessons from some of the world's most iconic leaders. It is the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. My name is Dr. Tina Allton, and I'm your host for today and the coming weeks. To love yourself, you've got to understand setting, foundation principles, right? I think life is full of principles and foundations. So let's just agree on certain things that, number one, like your attitude, our attitude, my attitude, your attitude impacts and affects how I will love somebody, right? So somebody's attitude can impact how much I might love them or not love them. Likewise, my own attitude can impact how I love me or I don't love me, or how somebody will love me or somebody will not love me. But for the purpose of our conversation, the focus is on me loving me, you loving you. How can you love who you are called to be and who you're created to be? And so the biggest underlying issue here for our conversation is about attitude, right? Attitude affects every area of our lives. There's not a single part of your life that is not affected by your attitude. I was reading a book by my mentor, John Maxwell, and talks about the fact that every aspect of our lives, including your future, yes, including your future, will be impacted and influenced by the attitude that you carry with you from today. So, are you ready? I wanted to buckle up and begin to tell yourself, I wanted to make that commitment to yourself that from today, you're going to keep a very good check on your attitude, right? And so here we go. Your attitude is who you are. To understand who somebody else is, you've got to know them. And when you know who they are, right, you understand them. It makes it easier to understand them. It's the same with ourselves. How well we get to know ourselves, how well we truly know ourselves, allows us or enables us or cripples us or stops us from loving ourselves. And so the first question I want you to think about is, who are you? Your personality. What personality do you live life with? What personality do you show up with, right? If you think about your fingerprints makes you who you are. That's why when there is a crime, the police will gather fingerprints. And even when you have a twin, your fingerprint will be different to that of your twin. And so to love yourself, to love who you have been created and called to be, requires that you get to know who you are. Your personality will affect how you love you, will affect your attitude towards you. Number two, who is around you? There is this saying that you're the sum of the 5 people around you. And I think now, the degree of separation is becoming even more and more smaller and smaller and smaller. The gap, by which we're separated from one another is becoming even smaller because of social media. But it is true that the environments that you live in, environment that you're constantly placing yourself in, who is around you, who is in your core, who has access to your ear, right, affects who you see yourself as. It affects how you love who you are. It affects how other people see you, and it affects how you ultimately will see yourself as well. And so it's very important that you look at, what are you exposed to? How is that impacting you? Who are you allowing to be in your close circles, right? Think about that. Your environment definitely makes a difference to who you are. It makes a difference to your attitude, and definitely makes a difference to how you love yourself. Number three, what do you feel? Okay, what do you feel? How often have you allowed what other people think of you to impact how you think, how you make choices, and how you perhaps even show up? If you think about teachers, our teachers, I remember very well in primary school, a teacher called me such an unpleasant name. And I'm sure that we all, perhaps maybe at some point in our lives, met a friend or met somebody who is still hung up about, something the teacher said to them. And this person is in their 50s, 60s, 70s, and they're still hurt by that, right? And so other people's feelings can sometimes, when you allow it to take root, can deeply impact your life, deeply impact your choices, deeply impact your attitude, deeply impact what you think of yourself. So be mindful of what you feel. Be mindful of what you take in terms of other people and what they say to you. And there is this other saying that hurt people hurt other people. So be very, very mindful of that. Number four, how do you see yourself? Self-image. What mirror are you looking at? There's this children's storybook, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. Rapunzel, Rapunzel, who's the fairest of them all, right? What mirror are you looking in, and what are you seeing? I remember being with a group of friends, and we're talking about, when we look in the mirror, what is it that we see? And although things were not spoken, like, oh gosh, I see tiredness, I see sadness. I mean, these are all inside stuff, and yet we were able to see it in one another, right? And so when you look in the mirror, do you see a tired woman, or you see a woman, you see a mother that is been providing for their baby through the night? Which is it, right? It's a mindset switch. What do you see? I'm not saying that you don't admit when you're tired. Yes, when you're tired, obviously you have to admit that you're tired, and you have to pause, and you have to, rest, all of those things. But do you see do you see what the hooks that will weigh you down? Do you see the weights that weigh you down? Or do you see what is inside of you? What do you see when you look inside the mirror? Right? What labels are you applying to yourself? And every label, I think it was Dwayne Dyer, said that we have to examine the labels you apply to yourself. Every label is a boundary or a limitation that you will not let yourself cross. If you're having trouble getting to where you want to go to, pardon me, the problem may well be inside of you. So if you don't change how you feel inside of you about yourself, then you will not be able to change outside the actions that you have towards others, right? And so it's very, very important how you see yourself. Number five, what experiences are you exposing yourself to? What experiences are you allowing yourself to have? If you think about a game of cards, right? Everybody gets a card and you accept them. You kind of look at the cards and decide, oh, I don't want that. I'm out of the game. You accept them. And when you accept them, you do the best you can. You play the best way you can. It's the same thing with our lives and the risk that we have to take. Life is always about risk. There's a risk in coming out of your home, getting your car, getting the train, getting the bus, getting married, having a baby, having a new job, starting a business, traveling, everything, even eating, right? Going to a restaurant, everything that we do has risk attached to it. But you cannot quit. You cannot hold all of your life because of an experience that you have, or situation that happened to you, a circumstance that happened to you. You have to be able to look at those experiences and let that become a growth a growth experience, because you can always learn from every experience, the good, the bad, and the ugly. You can learn from every experience. So I want to encourage you, but I also want to challenge you. Whatever situation you're going through, I want you to look at what is the other side. Flip it on its head and look at what else can I learn out of this, right? What can I learn out of this experience, rather than letting the experience become a limitation or a boundary or something that weighs you down and stops you from moving. And finally, what do you believe? What do you think, right? There is the saying that we are only transformed by the renewal of our mind. And so, what do you think has the biggest impact on who you become? What you think about yourself has the biggest impact on how I love myself, how I show up, how I live my life, right? All of those things are hugely impacted by what I think. And the sum of all your thoughts comprises overall what your attitude in life is. The sum of everything I think about myself becomes the overall total of how much I would love myself, and therefore how much I will allow somebody else to love me, right? And so I want you to look at seriously, have you applied any labels to yourself? Have you placed any limitations, any boundaries? What is it? How are you thinking? Be transformed by the renewal of your mind. And remember, every thought you have shapes your life. What you think about yourself becomes your attitude towards yourself. The way you think about other people becomes the way you think about yourself. And therefore, if we're truly going to be able to authentically say, you know what, I love who I am comfortable in my skin, I love who I'm called to be, I love who I'm created to be, I love being me, then you've got to be aware of and take every thought that does not transform you. You've got to take that thought, you got to zap that thought, right? You got to take that thought captive, zap that thought. And finally, choices. What choices are you making? What you do? Right? And I think it's what was it? The I think it was Samuel Jackson, if I recall. All of us, or most of us, want to change the world, to improve lives. We want to change the world. We want to make a difference. We want to improve somebody else's life. But the world we need to change first is the one inside of us. That is a choice. And it looks like it's a choice that most people don't want to make. It's not, we're not willing to make that choice to change inside us first. And so I want to leave us with this. How well do you love yourself? What is the attitude with which you're looking at yourself, right? How are you looking at who you are? Who do you say you are? Who is around you? What do you feel when you think of you, right? What do you see when you look at you? And who are you with, right? Who are you with? What is in your environment? What are you thinking? Are you transforming your life by renewing your mind, your thought processes? And what choices are you making? What are you doing? Are you willing to pay the price it takes to change from inside you? Or are you more focused on changing the world, changing everybody else except yourself? I know that's a tough one. But friends, If we're going to be effective in our leadership, are we going to be true in who we are called as leaders, then it is going to be even more so poignant that we start with us. As we're thinking about, the season which we're in, that it's Valentine's, and as we're thinking about all the wonderful things we're going to be doing for our loved ones, I want you to pause for a moment and think about yourself for a minute and ask yourself, do I love me as much as I love XYZ person? And if the answer is not at 101% more yes, then you got to go back to the drawing board and work through some of what we've shared today. But I want to hear from you, right? What else would you love? What else would you add? What else has been your experience? What resonates with you? What else would you add as a leader? How are you helping other people to love who they are? How are you doing that? I would love to hear from you. And I'd love to hear your stories as well on how you came to really confidently, authentically, truthfully come to love who you are, what's and all. Until I come your way next week, have a wonderful week. Enjoy Valentine's. Enjoy spending time with your loved ones. And I look forward to hearing from you. And that's all for this week. You've been listening to Dr. Tina Allton with the Now Talks, the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. All that remains is for me to say have a fantastic week, stay safe, and reach out if you need any help now at nationsofwomen.com. Until next time, enjoy the pursuit of your potential, and remember, now is your time.